What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in today. This is a special edition of the Running Gold Standard podcast. We are bringing it to you in video form, and we are so pleased to be joined today by Stephanie McCarroll, aka SoCali Steph on Twitter. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. It's a pleasure to be here anytime.
Yeah, so there's some huge news that just happened right before we started this interview, and Jamal Adams was traded to Seattle Seahawks. Anthony, I think you wanted to ask her a couple questions about this, right?
Yeah, so Steph, this is obviously huge news regarding not just the Niners, but the entire NFC West. We've seen some things saying that Jamal Adams' impact for the Seahawks could be that of Russell Wilson, and it's not just him as a safety, but it's just him as the player, who he is in the locker room, off the field. The guy is just defined as a team leader. So what do you think that Jamal Adams is likely going to bring to the Seahawks?
You know, I like it for the Seahawks. There's a couple of reasons why, but I think for me, obviously, it's that Seahawks are known for their cover 3 defense. So the fact that he plays that really well, and also if you have that extra, you have the safety in the 2 corners, I think, and they play zone, I think it's going to be a really good fit. That also being that we don't know what the Clowney situation is, so they're definitely going to do that. I also think it is very telling for the NFC West, because not just what the 49ers did on offense, but also the Cardinals. I mean, with Fitz and bringing in now I totally lost my mind, but why can't I think of him? They just traded for him.
Hopkins.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I think done there would make sense for them to, to strengthen their secondary. And they're kind of known for that. They do that really well.
Yeah, the Seahawks are definitely extending that playoff run while they still can. It definitely still feels like the Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson show, where if one goes down or if Russ gets hurt or anything like that, that could possibly be it. So Jamal Adams almost feels like a saving grace for the team. But with that being said, Steph, you see what they traded away to get him. They traded 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick, and also another safety who's actually not that bad in Bradley McDougald. So when you look at it now, would you have given up that much for Jamal Adams?
Not if I were the 49ers, but because it's just not their game. I see why they did it for Seattle, and I think that window is closing. I think it's a real big travesty that Russ Wilson only got them 1 Super Bowl, because he's an amazing QB, and he has so much to do, and they've only got that 1. So I think that window's closing for them. So it seems to me they're going all in, and that's their strategy. And hey, if it works, you can't really knock it, but they had to do something. I mean, with the way the NFC West is doing, I still think it's going to be a little bit of a weird matchup, but they always give the 49ers problems. I mean, they find a way. So we'll see how it all, goes down, but they had to get stronger in their secondary for sure.
It definitely, this is the type of moves that we see like the Rams make, for example, when they went after Jalen Ramsey, and they gave up the entire farm. Do you think that, like what the Rams did with Ramsey and trading away all that capital? So Seattle doesn't necessarily have a good history of first-round picks, but first-round picks are still first-round picks. Do you think that this is going to be something that could potentially really hurt Seattle in a couple of years?
I mean, it's possible. They don't have the best record, as you say. I mean, but at the same time, I mean, it even during the course of the draft, if there's a player that they really like and they want to go get, they've just lost that ability to go get that. So, sure, but it's, that's part of the game. I mean, maybe they have a plan to trade away and get different picks later on, and that's really like the GM's call at that juncture. But they must have really wanted him and felt like this was an important thing to do. And I'm going to reserve judgment there, because I really like Jamal Adams. I think he is a monster. So I think he can do great things for Seattle. I personally think he's very scary. So, I'm not going to knock it. I think it's a good move for them.
we talked about acquiring Jamal Adams. We have a YouTube show, me and Matt Llewellyn, and we talked about it. And the consensus we kind of came to was, no way are we going to give up the farm. And that's exactly what the Seahawks did. They mortgaged their future for one player. And just like Anthony said, it's so Los Angeles Rams. And I tweeted earlier when this happened, it kind of reeks of desperation. It's kind of like the Seahawks are seeing the gap widen between themselves and the 49ers. And they're saying, what can we do to make sure we're not irrelevant in the next couple of years? Now moving on, the NFL obviously is facing a huge financial burden and crisis with not being able to have fans in the stadium the next year, and who knows for how long, to be honest. And they were kind of floating around the idea of just eating that revenue loss in the next year or two. And the NFLPA came out saying, why don't we go ahead and spread this out? We have an 11-year CBA to work with. And they ended up coming to an agreement of 4 years, I believe is what the agreement was. Does that help the 49ers, or would you say it hurts the 49ers? Because it's not quite spreading it out the full CBA, but it's not quite crunching it down to 2 years either.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously hurts everybody, just because they went from like 198.2 million in 2020 to next year being, the minimum at 175, and we don't know what that's going to be because the season hasn't happened, and I think there's TV negotiations to happen. But even that $23 million, that's a lot of money per year for somebody that's trying to contend. So that 20 million for the 49ers, especially, would be George Kittle. Or, you could have kept Butner with that money. And now it was already tight. And then it's even tighter. So I don't know. To keep Kittle, I think they're going to have to really maneuver, different ways to get that done. Because I that's something that I follow very closely is the salary cap. And it's something that I worry about because there's just not enough money. You can't exactly squeeze blood out of it. So, we'll see what happens there, but definitely it hurts. But I think for the 49ers, they're in a better position than say the Eagles or different other teams that have kind of really ended up in cap hell because they thought everything was going to be fine, and then they didn't really plan for the long term. So I think the 49ers are definitely in a better position, but everybody hurts here.
It's definitely a tough situation to be in. Obviously, teams don't really like to franchise tag players because that seems to have a long history of just not working out. We always see franchise tag players get traded, sit out, play, but be unhappy. And I don't think George Kittle would be unhappy, but I don't think the fans would necessarily like it. But speaking on revenue and such, obviously the big thing going around is the COVID-19 case. The NFL is finally opening up a training camp. They obviously announced that there's no more preseason games. But aside from that, we see other sports like baseball and basketball, pretty decent contact sports, getting back into play. Do you think that the NFL is going to face any real problems moving forward with just a regular season?
I don't know. I think it's a little scary because the difference just mathematically is you have 80 men roster, versus 15 in the NBA right now, or whatever that is. Said 18, I don't know. When they open their roster, so just math, and then you're talking about trainers and then coaches and then their assistant coaches and then the medical staff. I mean, it's just a big operation. So it's not the same as say baseball or NBA. I watched a couple of games on the NBA this morning and NBA or MLB, but they're doing it, but it's just a different game. It's just right in your face. And it's a real thing. So, and the thing is that even with locker rooms, I don't the MRSA thing spread so quickly in a locker room. It's like a host for anything that's contagious. So they're going to have to be real careful. And I hope that it doesn't, go badly, but it's certainly, something to be concerned about for sure.
It's so scary because even at my work, we had somebody, I work in a 14-story building, and somebody on the 13th, or I guess there's no 13th floor technically, but the 14th floor got COVID, and everybody was kind of freaking out. What if we were in the elevator with them? What if you're in the stairway, happen to go to the same bathroom? And it's like, I can't imagine that to the scale of a football organization, all these people constantly in contact with each other. And it's just like, if somebody gets sick, who's to know how long they were sick, who they were around in that point? It's going to be really tricky. And I don't know how they're going to be able to kind of manage those risks. But kind of moving it back to more of a football standpoint, and obviously the 49ers just lost the Super Bowl. It's unfortunate, but that's what happened. And the last time they went to Super Bowl, they lost it as well. What are the main differences between Harbaugh's 49ers that lost to the Ravens and Shanahan's 49ers that lost to the Chiefs?
I think there's more cohesion. I think, it was so close. And it was tough because there were a lot of ways that could have gone. I also think that with Harbaugh's 49ers, they retired in droves, right after too. And that was like really hard because they've been able to, maintain the team like pretty much intact. I mean, save like a few players. And one thing about Shanahan that he does very, very well is that anybody can kind of fit in where he wants them to fit in, and he can adjust things, and they're just so like, they can be used in different ways. I mean, they're like almost interchangeable. Like it's just different. So I think that's a big change as far as that goes, but I'd be surprised to see them go, real deep down. And I also think that the 49ers were even still, they contended. It just, wasn't, that year was the best year.
Speaking on contenders, obviously this team is in a really good position to compete for the next 3 to 4 years. Even barring salary cap problems regarding guys like Kittle and later on like Bosa and Warner, having Kyle Shanahan and even having Parag Marathe and John Lynch is alone a great foundation just to build a team or even restock on a team. When we look back on the season, there were a ton of players that felt like who didn't get any love at all. From guys like Dre Greenlaw and K'Wan Williams, who was the best slot corner in football, by the way, to even guys like Jimmy Garoppolo and Deebo Samuel, who didn't get enough appreciation. So when you look back on the season and you look at the team now, who do you think hasn't gotten enough of that love?
This might be a little surprising, but I'm going to say Coleman. I think he is just really good. And I know he doesn't get as many yards as Mostert, but he's just a different kind of back. He's in your face, and I love that he can catch. And I like once he and Jimmy Garoppolo like get on the same page, I think that could be really, really deadly. And I think even with McKinnon coming in, like I think that's kind of what makes that that offense like hard to defend. Like, how do you defend that when you don't know where he's going to go? So I think he doesn't get enough love, and he had that really great Vikings game, and I just don't think he gets enough love. And I like the idea that it's a platoon running back situation where they each have a job, and it's not about individual stats. It's about going in, getting your job done, and winning, and they do that, and so that works. So I like him, and I don't get the whole like, why would you want to trade him? I don't get that.
There's so much hate for Tevin Coleman on 49ers Twitter. It's almost like a toxic just search result when you search his name. I don't understand it. I agree with you. I think he's a really good running back. He fits into the system. I mean, he had that awesome game against the Carolina Panthers as well. He just totally blew up all over the place. And fans are over here saying, well, if the 49ers just cut Coleman, then they'd be able to appease Mostert and all of his demands as far as his salary. And I would think that would probably put them back significantly if they didn't have Tevin Coleman to kind of pair along with Raheem Mostert. So I totally agree with you there. And you might catch some flack for that. I'm just giving you a heads up.
It's okay.
Now, I love it. Now let's move on to kind of some rapid fire questions. You can answer with however many words you choose. First one here for you. If you could choose any 49ers player, present, past, who would it be and why? To have a drink with, excuse me. Any 49ers player to have a drink with, who would it be?
I'm going to go with Nick Bosa, and it's probably because I want to discuss politics. I know that's not fancy, but
So obviously the team has a lot of history, arguably some of the most famous players in NFL history. If you had to choose between Joe Montana or Steve Young, whether it's to have a drink, talk politics, eat with, who would it be?
Steve Young. Yeah, definitely. I think it's just my generation. I've actually met Joe Montana before, so I'm definitely going Steve Young. Yeah, I think he just seems cool. I'd like to pick his brain.
Yeah, he seems like a super nice guy. Watching him on all those pregame shows and even just kind of his little interviews, he seems like such a nice guy. Now, what about this? It's kind of more our era, Frank Gore or Patrick Willis. And this is like tearing my heart in two right here, even asking this question. Eager to see your answer.
I'm going with P. Willie. Just P. Willie forever. I like the way he plays the game. I'm just more of a defense type. I think it's just interesting, and the way he played the game. I think he was a real leader on defense, and I just like it. He knew what was going on. He could make amazing reads, and I love Frank Gore, but yeah, I just P. Willie forever.
You have to admit, though, Frank Gore makes some of the best memes on Twitter. That guy gets roasted for his age all the time. It's so unfair to the guy. So, obviously a lot of nostalgia here, but would you choose between Candlestick Park or Levi's?
Candlestick. I think Levi's is a little soulless. I don't know. It's cool. It's like all new and that kind of stuff. And I know that Candlestick was a total dump, but I don't know. I grew up there, so it was like, even though it was like hard and to get there and like climb all those stairs and all that, it still was like our dumpy stadium. So yeah, I'd say it's where I grew up. So I got to go Candlestick, even though it's like totally gone now.
Yeah, Candlestick. That's like the perfect description for it. It's our dumpy stadium. You would go there, you would know you'd have to trek through like a quarter mile of dirt and mud if it's raining, climb all those steps, but you were just so happy. It was like a perfect environment once you got in there. Levi's doesn't quite have that feeling yet. Maybe soon, but 49ers will get there. Now, last rapid fire question, and this is definitely going to ruffle some feathers. In-N-Out or Five Guys?
Okay, so I've never had Five Guys. I saw your question and I was like,
really?
I gotta go In-N-Out because I've never had it. I'm not a big burger eater. I like veggie burgers. Sorry.
Okay, all right. So we'll take In-N-Out. I am an In-N-Out guy. I believe Anthony probably is too. So, all right. That is going to do it for us, guys. Make sure you follow Steph on Twitter. Her handle is on the screen. Steph, I just really want to thank you for coming on. This was a blast. Really appreciate it.